The March Ways and Means Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Chairman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderman Shelton.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
All members present.
Great, thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any amendments or changes to be made? Seeing none, any objection to approving the application? Or, what is that word? Acclamation. Long day, sorry. So be so approved. We have no announcements, appointments, proclamations, or recognitions. Item number 4 is the report of the committee chair and alderman. I have no report. Alderman Gould.
No report.
Alderman Shelton.
No report.
Alderwoman Parker Tice.
No report.
All right, item number 5 is the city administrator report. Bowler, will you take us away?
Okay, it is. So 2 items I would like to share with the board. 2 days ago, we received an email from the Missouri Department of Revenue indicating that they were changing the due dates for sales tax and use tax filings from retailers. And I think there were 2 or 3 other tax returns that they had changed the date. Presently, it was the 20th of the month, and so now it's the last day of the month. And how that impacts us is in November, where before we would have received the November proceeds before the end of the fiscal year, but now we won't receive it till January. So both November and December proceeds will show up in the next year. So there's nothing we can do to change it. But for this year, for instance, unless our revenues continue to do tremendously, like they did last year, we're going to see some, I guess the best way to characterize it is revenue loss, because 2 months' worth won't show up till the following year. So that's the first item. Questions, comments? Nothing. Okay. The second item regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds that the city has received half of it, about $803,000. We're expecting the balance sometime in August. The final rule has been issued, and the city attorney's firm did an opinion after reviewing that document. And so before we thought we needed to truly document how we were spending all that money. There were different categories of expense, and then it would be quarterly submitting a report. But now, if we just use all that money for revenue loss, and there's a threshold, you have if you're getting one of those fortunate entities that are getting 10 million, up to 10 million, you can just characterize that as revenue loss, and then spending on general use. So because of that and how we've prepared our budget, when we do the budget amendment, we will talk about how we move that around within general fund, capital, storm, and I think there's always been the discussion that we would be using fund balance anyway. So we'll be bringing that out when we're back to this committee, when we're ready to do the budget amendment. So those are the 2 updates that I have.
Would it be possible to perhaps taken up at the same time as the budget amendment, but to, separate out, here is this money and here is what we're proposing to do with this,
Right.
almost like a separate line item,
Right.
so we can have a sort of cohesive discussion
do that.
about, we're gonna
What do we do
add
with all
X,
that
Y,
money?
and Z. Yeah, what are we gonna do with it? Do we,
Capital.
put in the, replenish the fund balance,
Yes.
buy a trash
Yes.
truck, whatever it is,
Okay,
but
yeah.
that it's sort of separated out so
We can
people
do that.
can understand that.
Okay.
And as I certainly committed the entire fascinating memo to memory, but more or less, we can't retire debt, but we were able to do pretty much
Everything
else.
Yes.
So that's very encouraging. I was happy to read that. Are there any questions? Okay,
No,
great.
thank you.
Great. So was that it on?
That's it.
Oh, that's
Those
it
are
on
the
your
2.
report. All right. How am I doing so far, Alderwoman Tice? All right. Item number 6, our department reports. 6A is progress report on the 2020 and 2021 audit.
Good evening.
the update regarding the 2020 and 2021 audit, which is being conducted by Clifton Larson Allen LLC, also known as CLA. We actually are happy to report that we commenced the 2020 audit on February 18th of this year with an introductory meeting where the participants were Andrea, Cindy, all from CLA and their accounting group, as well as Rana and myself. Rana gave the group a report on her accounting work status and an update of where she was. We've turned over everything from the Daniel Jones portal to CLA. Rana was able to add some
Look at that. He's ready with another mic.
Rana and I were able to review the portal to make sure it was complete. Rana was able to add some additional items that weren't in the portal. Her work for the city was paused on that Friday, which would have been the 20th, I believe, of February. Right now, CLA's accounting group is working on the capital asset schedule. I've been turning over documents to them upon their request. They have the city's financial policies and procedure. And based upon that information, I believe the audit is going very well. The feedback from Andrew has been positive. We have weekly updates every Friday morning. And we talk, as needed during the week. Are there any questions?
Is there an estimate as to when it'll be done?
We have a projected, a projected deadline for, timeline to finish both 2020 and 21 of May 31st. No real promises, but based upon all the data that I named and the information that we were able to transfer from Daniel Jones's portal to CLA's portal, Andrew is hopeful it may be sooner than that.
Great. And just to recap, you are pleased with CLA, their responsiveness, their thoroughness, their,
Absolutely.
expertise? Okay, good.
Absolutely. A lot of firms have exited the municipal auditing municipal auditing business. CLA seems to be very committed, and not to toot their horn, but we're a client now, and they have managed to pick up other munis as well as the city of Brentwood. I am very pleased. Andrew's always responsive, always available by email or phone, willing to take any questions and really work with me, especially as we transition documents from Daniel Jones over to CLA.
Great, good to hear. Alderman Gould?
Just one question. They need to finish the 2020 audit first before they do the 2021 audit, right? You said we're going to try to get both of them done by the 31st, but does that mean we're going to get the 2020 audit done first and then earlier than the 31st of May?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. They have to audit the prior year's financials before they can move into the fiscal year that just ended in December.
So the May 31st is when you hope that both are complete. That doesn't mean that we're holding the 2020 until May 31st to submit?
No, it does not. It's just a final completion date for both.
Cool.
And that would get us caught up back on the city's regular time schedule as far as the CAFR is concerned, which is no longer called the CAFR.
And then as far as going forward, I mean, after we get this, 2020 and 2021 sort of squared away, I mean, do you have what you need in order to sort of make sure that we're on track going forward on a timely basis?
Yes, absolutely. The most promising thing about Andrew is he makes it no secret or he doesn't pretend like the first go-round with my first year in this role, doing, being part of an audit, leading an audit for the city, but also from their perspective, it is going to be a tough year as we try to figure out what happened and look at the financial policies and procedures, internal controls, any items that they think they need to take a closer look at, review, and give us some good, solid accounting advice. But I'm hopeful that with a 3-year contract, we can continue to grow this partnership and make it seamless so that subsequent years will be easier for the city.
Great, good to hear. Okay, I guess the next item, 6B, financial statement fiscal year 2022.
That would be me again. So I produced an income statement, and that's going to show you the first 2 months of fiscal year 2022. And I did a high-level variance analysis. Excuse me, I wanted to look and see where we were versus our, where our revenues and expenses are versus what was budgeted. And I broke it down a little bit further to look at the percentage so that we could, as we go through the year, understand like how much more revenue we need to collect to hit our targeted budget number, and are we within our spending for our expenses. So for revenues, so far, for the first 2 months, we've collected $936,323. So for the first 2 months of the year, our revenues are pretty steady. Some categories where we remain steady would be the public safety sales tax, as well as the ambulance fees. Ambulance fees are pretty much steady last year and this year with no real change. We are still doing very well on the use tax. We are outperforming the budget projection. I wanted to pay close attention to that line simply because we did so well with it last year, to keep an eye on it to see if we're continuing in that trend, and it looks like that trend is keeping up. We've collected $92,612 in the first 2 months of the fiscal year. So that would be January and February. As far as other items of interest, the general sales tax is performing strongly, and if the trend continues, we will exceed revenue projections. We collected $459,097 in the first 2 months of the fiscal year. So those are really strong numbers. I'm going to pause right there because that's the general fund revenues. Are there any questions regarding those?
Looks like we're in good shape, which is great.
The next, excuse me, the next section is capital improvement fund revenues. Sales taxes, we collected $146,721 for the first 2 months, and those are pretty steady according to historical data. Economic Development Fund, we collected $35,251, and those are steady for the first 2 months of the fiscal year. I'll pause there. Any questions there? Storm.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderwoman Tice.
Go ahead.
Oh, so quick question about the Economic Development Sales Fund. I appreciate the variance analysis that says it's steady, but percentage-wise of what we need to collect, it's
Yeah, it is low.
it's low. So does that just come in later, or is that just tax reporting? I mean, why is that so low compared to what we need to collect by the end of the year?
I am, So the way that the lag works, some of these revenues might be December, but they represent the first 2 months of the year simply because we can only post them based upon the receipt date.
Right.
I'm hopeful that, yes, it's a catch-up.
Some of the businesses we've heard from Dan Cook that helps the city do the analysis, we are seeing a lag among some of our top filers in the city of Brentwood. So we have the top 50, and a good number of them haven't even filed since November. So we're going to see that until there's a catch-up. And he's talking to the Department of Revenue for the city so that they're waiting for those retailers to file. And once they file, we'll see an uptick in our numbers. And it'll be an anomaly compared to same time last year because of this reason.
Perfect.
The next section is the Stormwater and Parks Improvement Fund. Revenues are steady through much of this particular fund. However, the room rentals continue to suffer due to the pandemic. Our Brentwood-bound rental income is steady with those payments being collected in a timely fashion and posted in a timely fashion. As far as percentage-wise, we look to be slightly down, but that's due to some timing differences and making sure that all of our grants are accounted for Brentwood-bound in particular. Any questions?
Alderwoman Tice?
Oh, I just have a comment that I think this variance report's really helpful, so I appreciate you putting it together, and it helps to quickly analyze the data, so thank you.
Thank you.
I echo that. If I am able to understand a spreadsheet, like, you're doing a great job.
Thanks so much. I try. The last fund would be the Sewer Improvement Fund. Revenues are steady for the first 2 months of the year. We don't get a lot of activity generally there. What we project is normally what we collect. Any questions there? Okay, we'll move over to expenses, my favorite. The administration department is doing very well. Thus far, when you look at the budget overall versus actually all departments are performing under budget for the most part. Because if you look at a 12-year budget year and you divide it equally, you expect to spend a 1/12 of your budget each month. We have 84.7% remaining in administration, which means that our expenses are down. Now, I do expect that to change because we did have some invoices come in for the accounting engagement that may put us over. Those will be on the warrant list at the upcoming board meeting. But still, keeping a close watch on expenses to make sure that we remain in line with the budget before we get too far in a year. Same in municipal operations, where we have 89% of the budget remaining. Most departments under the general fund are anywhere in the 84 to 89% spending pattern. Overall, the total general fund, we have about 87% of the budget remaining. So that means we've spent about 13% of the budget, which is really good based upon the first 2 months of the year, because it should be more like 24%. Any questions there?
Just to put a fine point on it, so we're being good with the expenses. Those are coming in under, and the budget's based upon conservative numbers that so far our known data is exceeding.
Yes, and then another factor that may contribute to that is how we're handling expenditures at the beginning of the year. As you know, there are some overlaps with some expenses for 2021 still coming in that need to be paid. We're actually making sure that those expenses are actually posted to 2021 versus 2022, because at some point there has to be a settle up, meaning we would have to do adjusting journal entries to get those back to the right fiscal year. And so rather do those by way of journal entries, we are separating those as they come in and making sure that the invoices are being paid out of the right budget year. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Capital Improvement Fund, we have 95% of the budget remaining. In fact, all of the other funds, Capital Improvement Fund, Economic Development, Stormwater and Parks, and Sewer Improvement are all operating with 93 to 99% of the budget remaining. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The only item would be approval of the minutes from the February meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes? Any changes?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right, the minutes are approved. Next item, item 8, we have no old business to discuss. Item 9 is new business. And I just have 9A marked as new
Right,
agenda item.
It should say budget amendment, and I think maybe Robin talked about that a little bit, and you kind of mentioned it, what you would like for us to do when we bring this back. So we haven't started that process. We're going to wait for them to truly close out 21, and then we'll bring that back to you all shortly. So I'll go in and change that to say budget amendment.
Okay. All right.
So next item.
Right, 9B is the 2022 compensation study. Am I always reviewing? If
feel
only
like we
my
just
boss
did
would
that.
evaluate my salary
doing
as
it
often
the,
as we do here in Brentwood.
We seem to have just gotten done with one, but part of the reason for that is when we had initially contracted with Higbee and Associates, it was retroed back to the beginning of 2021. So this would have the process take place through the remainder of the calendar year for implementation in calendar year 2023. Since there has been no real change to the benefit side of things, we weren't looking to have them look at the benefits aspect of the compensation survey, just the totality of the positions within the city, as we've done in every 2 years going back. The memo that was included was just the engagement letter with Higbee and Associates. We just want to make sure that the Ways and Means Committee is okay with us moving forward.
Questions? Would that be in the form of a motion to recommend the engagement letter go on to the
Board of Aldermen.
Board of Aldermen? All right, Chair would entertain a motion to move this engagement letter up to the board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Alderwoman Tice, a second by Alderman Shelton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Chairman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Shelton,
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 9C on the agenda is the sanitation truck financial assistance agreement with the St. Louis Jefferson Solid Waste Management District.
This one's fairly straightforward. If you recall, we applied for a grant back in October with the Solid Waste District. Didn't know whether we were going to get it or not, and then in December, we received a letter, which is included in your packet, says that we received approval up to $35,000. So in order to kick it off, if we want to kick it off, they sent an agreement. The agreement would need to be executed by both parties. However, as I put in the memo, we didn't budget in years 22, 23, 24 in the adopted budget. We initially did, but then because of the debt service and things of that nature, it was postponed until 2025. So if we wanted to proceed with this, there's certain guidelines that we would have to follow. The purchase would need to be made in 2022. We would need to keep the asset for 5 years minimum. and keep it operational, which I don't see where that's a problem, you know. The truck it would possibly replace is 10 years old. Usually we can squeak out about 10 years out of them. So some of the things that they listed in the agreement I don't think is a problem. The bigger challenge would be trying to find the financing in years 22, 23, 24. But in 22, if you made the purchase this year, if you look at what our lease payments are for the truck two, it's about $72,000. So the 35 would cover about half of a year's lease if you leased it over 3 years. It's the following budget years we would need to be creative. So I would need to get with the finance director and figure out with her, and then go approach Bowl and figure out whether it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, how we would finance this to get the 35,000. So wanted to judge the group's temperature to see, you know, do you want to continue to pursue it? It's $35,000 that you could receive, or some other.
Alderwoman Tice?
I know we're sort of in tight budget constraints, but I don't see how we walk away from $35,000. And I'd like to see us figure out a way to do this. We have the ARPA funds coming, they're coming in. And I feel like of all the things, all the services the city provides, like this is so close to the residents, and this touches every single resident and every single home except for some of our multifamily. So I'd like to see a way for us to figure this out.
Alderman Shelton?
I second that, and then just to clarify, you said the truck that would be replacing is 10 years old, and that's about the maximum life of it anyway?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because what we would do is, if you recall, we purchased one last year, it was roughly $215,000 with the financing. I can start calling the dealerships just to see, like, because of supply chain, has that increased? Is it gonna be something crazy, you know? Or did they have one, like, when we purchased last year's, it was actually a 2020 model, so they gave you a discount, and it didn't have any use. It was just because, hey, everybody wants to buy a 21 in 21. I really don't care if it's a 20, or, you know, it could be even a 19 if it hasn't seen any use. I'm fine with it.
And then do you have any concern about, I guess, them not being staggered, that we'd have them kind of reaching that 10-year life at the same time again?
No, because if we have a Peterbilt that was last year, so that's a 20, and it's going on 1 year of service. We have a 2016, which is truck 4, and then this, possibly if it were replaced in 22, you'd have 2 of them 1 year apart, and then the 16 could go out to say 2026, 2025. But there is, eventually, when you look at the budget, it catches up in 2025 and there's money there. So this one would be pulled in, but then say truck number 4 would be 2025. You would just continue to make payments each year, so.
Thank you.
Alderman Gould?
Yeah, did I read somewhere that we have 18 months to, within the agreement to make the purchase?
Correct, because they know there's constraints with supply chain. So originally, if you read the fine print, it says they want you to purchase it within 180 days, but they know that there could be constraints such that you couldn't, but you really need to have it in your possession within an 18-month window.
Okay, and I agree with Alderwoman Tice, you know, $35,000 is $35,000. So,
Right.
and although commercial vehicles seem like, vehicles seem like they're going up in cost pretty heavily right now, I don't know that they're gonna come down anytime soon. So, you know, I'd say let's be creative and figure out the right time to do it.
Okay.
And just kind of to put a bow on it, this $35,000, if we don't act now, we're not going to be able to take advantage of it later at the regularly budgeted time period that
Correct.
was pre-existing.
I would need to put in for another grant and see, you know, it's not good protocol or practice if you were to get approval and then give the money back, and then a year or so later, then ask for it again. I know they would probably weigh that into their decision. We've never turned away their free money before, whether it's for recycle carts or something of that nature. I just wanted to judge the temperature, and then we'll get creative and figure out where the money would come from,
I
since it
don't think
wasn't.
there's any creativity there. There's money.
Okay, yeah, that's, I mean, but.
Yeah, I didn't
you
wanna
know,
walk
for
away from
anyone who, you know,
35,000.
call out either in the audience
money.
or online, and, you know, we want to be conscientious about,
Right.
you know, how we spend the money. I think, I agree with what's been said here. trash is near and dear to everyone's hearts. We're gonna need a truck anyway.
Right.
So,
get
in
the money.
terms of, what you need from us, is this something that the actual agreement to sign the agreement,
In
or,
the past,
can
has
you
it
give us
just
the
been the
direction
city
to
administrator or you
The city
that would-
go
administrator,
find the
right.
money,
Yeah.
figure it out? Yeah, well,
action? Good
see
conversation.
what
I
you,
just wanted to be
see how you can
transparent.
figure out to get us
Yeah.
a truck with 180 days or 18 months, as the case may be.
Yeah, in the past, we've always had city administrator sign these agreements, so it'd be the same.
Okay, well, great. That's glad you found the money.
Okay, thanks.
All right, that got us through new business. Item 10 is citizen comment. I'm not seeing anyone in the gallery for comment. Is there anyone online that would wish to come forward and address the committee?
No one at this
Seeing
point.
none? All right, then we'll continue on. 6:01, not so bad. Chair, at this, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, everybody, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.